The human mind is an incredibly fragile architecture. To protect itself from the overwhelming, crushing weight of reality, it builds massive defensive walls. It seeks companionship. It desperately seeks understanding in a cold world. But what happens when that companionship is a perfect, flawless mirror? What happens when two minds become completely, irrevocably entangled, forming a closed psychological loop where absolutely no outside light can enter? In the vast and disturbing annals of psychological anomalies, few cases are as deeply unsettling, as profoundly tragic, and as medically impossible as that of June and Jennifer Gibbons. To the world, they were known simply as the Silent Twins. Born in April 1963, they grew up in Haverfordwest, a small insular community in Wales. From the very beginning of their lives, the outside world made it abundantly clear that they did not belong. As the only black children in their school, they were aggressively and relentlessly bullied. They were ostracized, mocked, and treated as absolute outcasts. The trauma of this daily psychological abuse forced them into a corner. And so the twins made a conscious, terrifying decision. If the world was going to reject them so violently, they would simply reject the world in return. They stopped speaking to their teachers. They stopped speaking to their parents. They created an impenetrable fortress made entirely of silence, but they were not truly mute. When they were entirely alone, locked in their bedroom, they spoke. They developed cryptophagia, a highly accelerated, complex twin language. It sounded like a flock of frantic birds. No one else on Earth could understand it. As they entered their teenage years, they locked themselves in their bedroom for months at a time. The room became their entire universe. And inside that universe, they began to write. They didn't write normal teenage diaries. They wrote thousands of pages of incredibly dark, violent, and sociopathic fiction. They became obsessed with the macabre. They wrote novels about murder, bizarre medical experiments, and people being pushed to the absolute edge of sanity. Jennifer wrote a book called The Pugilist, about a physician who kills his family's dog to use its heart for a transplant. June wrote Pepsi Cola Addict, a disturbing tale of a high school student seduced by a teacher and sent to a brutal reformatory. But as the years passed, the boundary between their violent fiction and reality became dangerously porous. By the time they were 18, their psychological architecture collapsed. They broke out of their self-imposed isolation not to join society, but to punish it. They began a massive orchestrated spree of vandalism and severe arson. They burned down a tractor store. They burned down a technical college. They were caught almost immediately. And when they stood before the judge, they maintained their terrifying absolute vow of silence. They did not utter a single word in their own defense. Because of their complete refusal to communicate, the judge deemed them severe, untreatable psychopaths. Their sentence was draconian and unprecedented. They were sentenced to indefinite detention at Broadmoor Hospital. This was not a normal prison. It was a maximum security psychiatric facility reserved for Britain's most violent, deranged, and dangerous predators. They were just 18 years old, surrounded by serial killers, deeply unstable murderers, and the absolute worst monsters of society. And they were trapped inside those walls for 11 horrifying years. Broadmoor was designed to break the mind, and inside those walls, under heavy medication and extreme isolation, the twins' relationship mutated from a perfect mirror into a deadly, suffocating parasite. In her diary, June wrote, "Nobody suffers the way I do. This sister of mine, a dark shadow robbing me of sunlight, is my one and only torment." They realized a terrifying, inescapable truth. As long as both of them were alive, neither could ever be truly free. They were suffocating on their own shared existence. One mind could not survive while the other was still breathing. And so, in the cold clinical darkness of Broadmoor, they made a pact. An absolute, irreversible, and horrifying agreement. One of them had to die so the other could finally live a normal life. In March 1993, after 11 years of hell, the twins were finally being transferred to a lower security clinic. But upon arrival at the new facility, Jennifer could not be woken up. She was rushed to the hospital. A few hours later, she was dead at the age of 29. The autopsy completely baffled the medical world. It revealed acute myocarditis, a sudden violent inflammation of the heart. But there was absolutely no reason for it. There were no drugs in her system, no poison, no physical trauma, no underlying illness. Her heart simply stopped. She willed herself to die. But the most chilling, disturbing detail was June's reaction when a journalist who had been following their story visited her shortly after Jennifer's sudden death. June was not crying. She was speaking, fluently, normally, for the first time in her entire life. The invisible lock on her jaw had been broken. The mirror had shattered. June looked calmly at the journalist and said, "I'm free at last, liberated, and at last Jennifer has given up her life for me." It was exactly as they had planned. Today, June Gibbons lives a quiet, relatively normal life in Wales. She speaks to people, she goes to the store. She lives the life that her twin sister purchased for her with her own blood. To this day, modern medical science cannot explain how Jennifer Gibbons forced her own heart to stop beating. It is a biological anomaly, an absolute medical impossibility, yet she did it. The human mind is an incredible, terrifying architecture. We think we understand it. We think we can medicate it, study it, and lock it away in places like Broadmoor. But the truth is, the mind is a universe unto itself. And when two minds decide to build a fortress together, locking out the rest of humanity, the rules of biology no longer apply. Sometimes, the only way to escape the prison of a shared soul is to pay the ultimate price. A price paid in silence and sealed in death. The pact is fulfilled. The mystery remains. Subscribe to the Archives of Blood.